That was that was Laurel Meets the Obsolete with El Olivo. And before that we had Fotiso with Running Lions. I'm just, got a few comments. Thanks, guys, for your comments. We got, what did we say? Enjoying your tunes and your comments. Thank you, whoever wrote that. What do you mean by locked away by the state? I mean imprisoned. I'm pretty sure that is being locked away by the state, right? Yeah. I might, correct me if I'm wrong. We need universities because we need BFM. That's a good point. BFM is... I don't know to what extent we're a part of the university. We're in a building at the university, but they don't... I mean, I don't get paid. I don't know. Some people get paid, but I don't think the university funds it or anything. Maybe they do. Anyway, I love university. I wasn't bagging university, but we don't need... I think even when BFM started, we didn't have all the... it would cost... I'd love to do another degree or be here, but it would cost me another 20 grand, which would then come out of my pay in about... 10% of my pay every week. So we don't need that. That's my main argument. Anyway, I'm on the phone to Tao Wells now. Kia ora, Tao.
Tēnā koe, Heidi.
How's your morning going?
Yeah, it's going lovely. It's really nice and sunny down here in Dunedin, Otipoti.
Cool. All right. Well, I wanted to talk to you because I guess, as I said to you, I was inspired by the death of my new. I'm a new fan of David Grabber, and just passed away. But I guess I've really also, with the lockdowns, been wanting to talk about, our bullshit economy and a lot of that. And then I guess I've also thought about contacting you for a long time, and it just seemed like a good idea because. Your work is kind of all about highlighting the kind of things that a lot of people don't talk about, which are really the fundamentals of how everything works politically, like the way people get paid and things. And you've got so many different projects we could talk about, but any of those things would probably be pretty good. Maybe I guess just for maybe listeners who aren't aware of your work, maybe we could highlight a few of your kind of like I guess the most famous project of yours was probably your unemployment office, beneficiaries office.
Yeah.
That got a lot of publicity. Do you want to tell the listeners briefly what that was?
I've got my standard clips that I can replay. Standard lines, my little memes. We ran a PR office. I had a part-time job doing that. I had given funding, $65 a week for 6 months to create this project, and as soon as I told the public, Wins knew all about it, but as soon as I went public about it, they felt like they had to punish me for having a part-time job. And that's the power of what's going on around here. The appearance of beneficiaries in public. We're asked to carry a role as the shit.
The scapegoats.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It really is disgusting, and it's I got to a place in my own mental health in 2010 where I just didn't give a fucking... I didn't care anymore about what the consequences were. I didn't want to be on benefit anymore. I didn't care if they kicked me off. I just wanted to come clean and just expose the hypocrisy of it all.
Mm-hmm. Because 2010 was really weird. This is 2 years into a national government, and it was really starting this kind of beneficiary bashing, and they were just shutting down Pace in those years, the artist dole. And
well, I'd grown up through the 80s, so it wasn't new to me at all. The demonizing of beneficiaries was, they had television commercials.
When? In the 80s?
In the 80s, yeah. On TV, they would talk about daubing your dirty beneficiary. Seriously.
I didn't know. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's when it started. When they started to kind of turn against. That's kind of interesting because isn't that when there's a lot of economic reforms, like say the farming kind of reforms, which put a lot of people out of jobs and.
Yeah, well, it kind of coincided, it seems, with capitalist market, boom and bust cycles. Mm. So, when the rich come in to harvest the market, the capitalist market, then as a little distraction, they put the boot in to the lowest, just to stimulate the economy. Mm-hmm. It's just appearances, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you've got and some of them are looking through your plethora of work and documentation. There's some economist who's quite frequently cited who talks about bringing in this needing to bring in unemployment in order to stop wages from getting inflated along with consumer goods. Because there's always this idea that there's someone else willing to take your job. Who is that economist? And I've never heard of this idea before.
Ah, right. Well, okay, you're going to get all technical and specific. I'm really going to download the right file here.
If it's a long time ago.
There's a bunch of economists that I've used as a support in my practice, as they say. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, maybe if you can look that up.
Well, no, let me drop a few names. Richard Wolff is probably the main influence. He's been doing this thing, Democracy at Work, for quite a while, which is, an overt socialist workers' co-op idea. As a total way out of the capitalist cul-de-sac. This idea that the market is a neutral space. It's just anyone who goes there can, between two people, that's what gets traded. But it's completely dominated. The appearance of the market is dominated by capitalists. They're the ones who spend all the money. And my big thing is that there is actually a competing economy, and it's almost like during COVID, it's the first time we've actually kind of get to actually see the power of the democratic economy.
Mm-hmm. How so?
Well, it's propping up capitalism right now.
What do you mean? See the power of the democratic economy?
Yeah, crazy stuff. Well, just in terms of the wage payouts.
Right.
Air New Zealand isn't that being at the moment supported by the government. What businesses aren't being supported by the government at the moment is kind of interesting that capitalism just falls over in the face of national emergencies.
Yeah. It is interesting. I sort of like the way we're suddenly racking up all this debt, and then you get these kind of like hysterical advertising by David Seymour saying, "Do you know how much the government is borrowing right now?" Like as though there's any alternative. And also, that's like the principle of capitalism, right? Borrowing money from other places.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
It seems kind of bizarre that he's now attacking the very principle of the economy he believes in his whole party is based on. But I guess, you kind of, it does sort of, in some ways I feel like maybe it's not a good idea to bring this up because of those types of accusations, but this idea of debt and this kind of idea of money being so, money being this ultimate guiding legal principle, but it's when it's not really real.
Yeah, it's the promised note, isn't it? What is it supposed to signify? I think it signifies a shared trust between the bank and the person who's saying that this is worth something, and you hold on to it. And that shared trust that creates a kind of stable environment that is then able to be built upon in terms of the civilization. I think as individuals, as people who have signed into a democracy, we don't have the representation that pushes the idea of what we want that shared trust to look like.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So I'm interested in pushing forward ideas of what that should look like. Mm-hmm. And one of them is just kind of trying to recognize that, there is this thing called a democratic economy. Yeah, it is this thing that's borrowing a shitload of money. But I don't understand what the implications of that are, and I don't understand why we aren't just printing our own money, which I believe we are at some level.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn about all of that at the moment, how it works with inflation. Because I do actually feel it's I sort of something I'm contemplating at the moment, which I hate to admit, is that how much most of my understandings and opinions about the world are actually, they're more founded on like people I trust whose ideas they are, rather than like say my own. Like even the fact that I believe in coronavirus and climate change. There's some material evidence, but I mean I'm not a scientist. I don't actually. It's just that I trust the people who say there is climate change more than the people who say there isn't. I'm not quite sure what to do in this kind of time of a lot of false information around how can you know if what you believe. Trying to found it, but I do instinctively feel that capitalism is an unnecessary and very damaging system, and I'm trying to understand a little bit more about inflation economies and those things like printing money and inflation and how they interact. It's going to be more.
Yeah, I think all of that stuff's been made incredibly unattractive because it is where the power is at, and if you're in a powerful position, it's in your interest to make it unintelligible.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you get to control the outcomes then. So I think we have to stumble into these categories. I think we have to brutally make them dumb enough to be understood by the most challenged person, because they are ultimately the steering wheel to kind of direct where we want to be going. And I'm looking out my window here in Dunedin, and it could be paradise.
Is it not?
It's so close. Reality is so close to being amazing. It's like the system we're using is just really the opposite of what we should be using, and it's like, damn, this is massive gap. And how do we get onto that other railing, on the other track?
It's totally
everything at it.
I guess one of the main things, and let's use this to get into some ideas that we're running out of time here, by the way, so we've got to let's shoot straight into this. But I guess the thing with money is that it becomes, and some of the ideas that I've been thinking about is from old David Graeber again, that it's like people have all these human values, like the people and you're like what you get from those relationships, and nobody's alive for that long, and like that's kind of all you've got to live for, and be like creativity and the satisfaction you get from that, or like learning things, discovering amazing, wonderful things about the world. But somehow this is all like the whole way our life is structured has been overridden by these moralities around your legal and monetary obligations, and where you stand in a monetary hierarchy, which is just a made-up thing. But the whole world is bought into it, and people die all the time because of it. Like there's any death from poverty is because of it.
Yeah, well, that's what's so radical about welfare. Everyone who's doing welfare, who's a part of welfare, is a socialist. And as a socialist, seriously, they are. And they're part of a democratic economy. And they're part of a democratic socialism.
I don't know I can agree with all of this, but it's too much to get into that I'm not going to argue with you.
You don't have to agree. I'm just selling my concepts.
Well, I've run out of time, so you win.
It makes sense to me. Like, look, I'm a part of a democracy that's voted for welfare.
You should. I agree with that.
We've decided to spend our collected profit on welfare, and yet somehow I'm supposed to be beaten up and demonized for using the wealth that we've already democratically decided to spend on people who need welfare. So there's a problem around the perception and who's controlling that perception. It's not a perception that serves the democratic citizens that are in democracy. It's serving the people that are ripping off democracy and they're in competition with it, which are capitalists.
Absolutely.
They are in opposition to each other.
Absolutely. And the money that goes on beneficiaries is not very much compared with the tax cuts gotten by people who have so much money that are just hoarding money. So, yeah.
Look, I don't want to destroy or capitalists. I think all I want is the opportunity to compete with capitalists for profit. So I don't have a problem with money so much. I have a problem with debt, and I have a problem with the fact that my visibility as a socialist is confused, is not recognised. That when I say that welfare is socialist, that it creates a laugh, which I understand. It does sound ridiculous, but it's the truth. I mean, it's what the right wing actually says and gets right about the left. Is that yes, it is. Welfare is socialist as hell.
Well, of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, of course it is.
And it gets a laugh because it turns over it totally disregards the shame that people try to inflict on anybody who's receiving anything from our state.
And we're an army just waiting to get going. We're just leaderless at the moment.
We're really running out of time, but can you quickly tell me about like a 2-minute thing? We briefly talked about like coming up with kind of economic, like different social systems, and you were talking about having like co-ops with, say, groups of small groups, partners, larger groups.
Oh, yeah, the idea that I have is a critique of Marxist traditional thought, where they're always talking about these other people, the working class over there, are going to someday be educated by us noble, enlightened white guys, and they'll rise up and realize, blah, blah, blah. It's just so sad. And what I've tried to do is take on what Richard Wolff has done with the democracy at work. And I've just said, well, hold on, there's a democracy at home. The democracy at home, of course, has been traditionally maligned because it's associated with the feminine and the private. But it's when I was really trying to figure out how to be a socialist artist, because the problem with that is, like, how do you be a single entity and be a socialist? Because socialist usually implies a group. And I realized that after much soul thinking, I suddenly went, oh, duh. I'm not alone. I'm always in a relationship with something or someone economically. It's either I'm in a relationship with another person who's helping me in some wealth way, or I'm in a relationship with an institution that's helping me in some wealth way.
Are you helping them back?
What was that?
Are you helping them back?
Exactly. I worked with. Do I? That's a good. I would love to be evaluated on that, because that's what my work is.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure you are. Otherwise, why would they be in a relationship? I'm just. I thought it was important to point out. The way you said it made it sound, like.
Well, I think that's a good place to start for anyone who's in a relationship. Is your wealth being shared equally?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, what is wealth? I mean, it can be just something as time and shelter and food and, spiritual enlightenment or these things. But if it's not being shared between the two parties equally, then it's probably not a good relationship. But if it is, then perhaps consider using democracy to figure out how to spend the wealth that you generate between your relationship. And if you are using democracy to decide how to spend your profit, then you're not actually practicing as a capitalist anymore. So all you need to do at that point is actually promote the fact that your relationship is no longer a capitalist relationship. So if you do that, if you can promote and differentiate yourself in the marketplace from the default of capitalism, then you are a socialist. And by doing that, you get to not perpetuate the system.
There's so much more I want to talk about. I've realized now that I've missed out things I needed to play on this show, little advertisements and things. We'll have to talk some other time. But thanks so much for having a kōrero with me, and I hope we get to talk again. And yep, I love what you do.
I appreciate your generosity, Heidi. It's obviously, it'd be lovely to talk again.
Cool. All right. Well, enjoy your almost. What was the word you said before? Like, so close to a beautiful day.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's stunning.
All right.